welcome to another live stream. Almost through this first complete week of live streaming every day, Monday through Friday. Pretty excited about it. Today I'm going to be sculpting a spectral professor. So he's going to have some ghostly elements and be much older than this base mesh that I have already sculpted on a previous stream. All right. Oh, camera. I'm always working on trying to get this camera work better, but I'll deal with that software later. All right. Today I'm just a little blurry, which honestly is fair because I kind of woke up feeling a little sleepy today anyway. Let me go ahead and clean the lens before I get started. Hope you guys are having a good morning. I already finished my morning coffee. Oh look, it fixed itself because I left. Okay. All right, let's get rolling. So obviously I don't want this professor to be so built. There's no reason for that. I also have the poly paint on here, very of the living flesh tone. So a lot of this is going to change. We're going to go ahead and stamp this over to the left, and then you guys can kind of check up every now and then and see the progress as we go. I see Pet is here. Welcome back. Always good to see you. All right, we have our little stamp here. And then I already went ahead before the stream started because I had a couple minutes, and I went through and grabbed all the pieces that I need from my asset library. Monkey's here as well. Welcome. Good morning. Just took my first sip. Very nice. I could do with another coffee right now. It's kind of just one of those mornings, you know? I just woke up crabby for no real reason. And then I went outside and it was hotter than I expected. And so I was doing my normal like barn chores kind of stuff and like sweating my ass off. I wasn't expecting to. So I'm feeling much better though. I've kind of like decompressed since then, had my coffee, and now I get to hang out with you guys and sculpt something new. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, Sia's here. He said, ooh, just in time. Yep, we're just getting started. Today is going to be a spectral professor. We're starting with Muscle Man here, but it's all going to come together. I'm already feeling better as you guys are kind of rolling in. Sometimes, just crabby, you know? All right. He's gonna have a fantastic little beard here. Usually I would go ahead and start sculpting him, making him old looking, but the reality is he's gonna be covered in this entire like coat, and I'm gonna have a bunch of facial hair. So I'm not gonna spend too much time re-sculpting this base mesh until I actually see how much is still gonna be visible. Wow, that really fits better than I expected it to right from the get-go. All right, I'll let that stay as it is. And then we have a nice mop of hair to add as well. When I created this hair base mesh, I knew immediately I was gonna get so much use out of it. It's so fun. If you guys ever want to know more about how I sculpt hair and like where this actually comes from, I'm definitely open to doing a live stream where I just show how to do that. Because I know hair can be a really tricky one. All right, he's already looking more fantastical and mad scientist-y. Monkey says, it's raining here. That sounds nice. It is not raining here. It is hot for no reason. It was like not even 70 this morning. I don't know, just the sun, it was hot. But I'm not even listening to music this morning. I am just listening to 10 hours of rain, nonstop rain. Chills me out. Alrighty, thank you guys for hanging out. It's always so cool to start a stream and you guys all start popping in. I love seeing all the familiar faces and stuff. Or I guess familiar usernames. That is your face, you know, your internet face. Alright, I want these little tufts of hair on the side to be especially big because he's going to be a proper mad scientist. Oh, I also started rewatching Stranger Things last night with my husband, so I had like super weird, spooky dreams. I don't handle scary things well. One of my housemates showed me the movie Smile like months ago, And I still can't walk down the hallway at night without turning the light on, which I know sounds really silly. I'm like not exaggerating. I do not handle spooky well. I love spooky things. I like sculpting scary things. But the thought of the scary thing being in my house, ugh, I just don't handle it well. Pat says, that hair and beard looks like me in the morning. Sai says, my internet face. Yeah, that's just how it is. Sai says, I wonder, do you have mental pictures of what we look like? Yes. Yes, I do. And I won't tell you guys because I don't want to, I don't know. I'm just not going to tell you. But I do have like associations of what I think you guys look like. I definitely have guesses of like how old you are, that kind of stuff. I don't know why. I naturally see a name and I start populating like a character sheet in my head. It's what I do. Not a Doc Martin is here. I recognize your name from Patreon. I don't think you joined a stream before though, so hi and welcome. And they say, I love horror movies, but I had to nope out a smile because of the cat things. Yeah. Yeah, that was sad. That sucked. I hated that too. I love cats. I mean, I love animals, all of them, but especially cats. Yeah, not a Doc Martin. Is this your request? I can't remember. It might not be, but you've requested similar things like this before. I should know. It's okay, you'll tell me. All right, Pat says, so you sculpt without any concept art? Kind of. Let me show you guys. This is what I have. This was my description. It said, this is the requester actually typed on Patreon. They said, I'd love to see some kind of spectral professor with a kind of mad scientist look about them, lab coat, messy hair, any other interpretation. Almost like an experiment gone wrong left him as a ghost. So after that, I went to the internet and I scrolled around and I grabbed images I liked. This one was pretty spot on. This one's ghosty. I like this one a lot too. I like the etherealness. And then this is an image from the pose archives that I'm gonna use as that's gonna be his final pose. And this entire right side of his body is going to be wisping into smoke, the magic ghostliness. So that's how I do it. I mean, it's kind of concept art, you know? I mean, I didn't sketch it or anything. I just kind of make a little collage and then I play around from there. But that's the behind the scenes, I guess. Sai says, if I join Legendary and just ask you to sculpt me with no further information, you would get something. You sure? I would. I mean, I wouldn't sculpt. You'd be more fantasy based, but yeah, I would. Let's see. Not a Doc Martin says, I have not. I'm just gonna call you Doc because it just makes it easier. Doc says, no, but this is cool. This month I did the spectral weapon coin sword thing. Okay, there we go. I remembered spectral. I just couldn't remember exactly. And then Pat says, interesting. It's a really good little turnout right away. Thank you guys for being here. If you're new, I really encourage you to subscribe because you'll get notified on my future videos. And then there's a fun pop-up on the screen. It just says your name with like fire, but I'm very excited about the alerts I have, so yes. I think the alert I have on my stream right now is for new subscribers, but I want to get alerts on there for if you like the video as well. It's just more satisfying when, as of now, if you like the video, it just increases like the number that's not super exciting. I like as much interactiveness as possible. I'm also gonna, I have a stream deck, which essentially is just like a little, you know, like how DJs have like soundboards almost, and I can customize different buttons to do different things. I do want to start customizing different reactions and fun things to kind of like signal different points in the stream and that kind of stuff. Nothing that's actually like super necessary to improve the quality of the stream. It's just fun stuff. It's just fun, silly stuff. So right now I'm fluffing his mustache and his hair. Everything is just getting a bit of a funnier look here. It's especially funny because he looks so youthful. We're gonna fix that. Also gonna gray him up. Pat says, I'm really this close to subscribing to the Academy Patreon. I need to make the maths first. I'd love to teach you. All right, and then Doc says, and Doc is just fine. Fabulous. Doc it is. So right now I'm kind of aging his features a bit, but I'm mostly just having fun with them and exaggerating the way I want to exaggerate his features. Gave him these really severe cheekbones, and then we're going to give some extra lines to his forehead as well. And just like that, we are making quite a lot of progress from our original base mesh I have tacked over on the left here. All right, I'm gonna do one of my favorite things, just going to poly paint and adjust colors. And this is a really easy way where I can adjust the color without having to repaint the whole thing. I'm gonna desaturate his eyes quite a bit and give him more of a, almost like a cataract look. There we are. All right, those paler eyes are a little spookier, and I'm gonna do the same thing with his body as well. Because again, he's gonna be a ghost, so I don't want these warm skin tones here. I want him to just be a little more blue and desaturated. Again, this has no bearing on the actual final model. It's just something I like to do. All right, a bit of a blue touch there. And let's make these lips and stuff more on the purple side. There we go. That's better. I'm gonna go ahead and use my paintbrush here, going in with the drag brush. And we're gonna add some dark circles to his eyes as well. Not that dark. We're gonna just do a small cloud. There we go. There we are. I still think it's funny that I've aged his face so much, but the rest of him is all hulked out. And yeah, I love answering questions about my process and what I'm doing, so if you have questions, don't be shy. I was gonna give him glasses or goggles, but I really like how his face came out, so I might not do that. All right, a little more puffiness on his face, making his nose just a bit larger. And I'd say we're all done with the face. I think that's coming out really nice. His hair is almost a little too fabulous, but I can adjust that a bit more later. As of now, let's get some clothes. All right, we're gonna make his neck much, much skinnier because he is going to be an old, ghostly man. There we are. All right. This super old face with like this very youthful body is cracking me up. All right, I have this little nice coat that's already been made. That looks fantastic. I'm using this as a base for the lab coat that I'm going to start sculpting. I can also pick a color here. What I'm going to do with like these kind of muted purples will be a nice look. All right, that looks pretty good. And then usually my golden rule is I always fit the clothes to the body. You always want the body to win, so to speak. But in this case, I do want to shrink him quite a bit. So I will do some modifications to make him a bit lankier right now. But taking care not to making it too deformed. There we are. currently his legs look like he cycles every single day, and he does not. So. All right, that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and put some sleeves. And all these pieces are coming from my asset library. I usually share that on stream, but I was a little early, so I did some stuff before the stream was started as kind of like a prep. But yeah, these are all pieces that I have sculpted beforehand over the years. I've been doing this full time since 2019. And since then, I have released some odd, almost 900 models on Patreon. This year especially, I've created quite a bit. I used to spend more time on doing Kickstarter projects, but now I've really just kept my priority on Patreon, and I've been enjoying it a lot. Largely because you guys have these awesome requests for me to do. It's so much fun. And Doc says, yes, we are unswolifying him. That is the perfect way to describe that. Doc, I'm so glad you're here. One, it's cool because I'm sculpting a doc of sorts. Obviously a different doc that your username's referring to. And it's just cool because I know I've already made models for you before, and it's always neat to see the same username somewhere other than Patreon. All right, that's looking good. I have this big belt I'm gonna put on him as well. I actually had a lot of assets that were gonna work for this model, which is kind of a relief because this week has been a lot of work. Goodness. Usually I am a little more careful with the kind of models I line up for myself, but this week I was like, oh, I'll just do the next 5 requests in order because I like to do things largely in order, respect the queue and whatnot. But in this case, I definitely should have moved a couple models around. Like this, earlier this week, I sculpted a peacock mantis shrimp completely from scratch. And I obviously had to do it from scratch because I don't exactly have those pieces laying around in my asset library. All right, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I actually have this really nice skirt that I made for, I think, a fortune teller earlier this month. And I think it's gonna work really well for the bottom part of his coat. I am gonna move his, I'm gonna double check the pose I'm gonna be sculpting. Yeah, okay. When I'm making a long coat or jacket or dress, I like to bring the legs in a little bit. Otherwise, it kind of skews the silhouette as I'm creating the new piece of clothing. So we're gonna move his legs in just slightly. I also avoid making really elaborate like poses with like an action pose if they're in a dress or something. It just makes it kind of a pain. Doc says, is your asset library primarily stuff you've done before that you just continuously modify? Pretty much. Let me go ahead and drop a hard save. We're gonna call this a Ghost Professor. I want to call it Spectral because it's a more fun name, but Ghost is much more searchable. All right, that's been saved. And then I'm gonna load in one of my asset libraries so you can actually see what I'm talking about, Doc. All right, this is my items asset library. So you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So these are all various items I've made over the years. Some are recent, like for example, this panther base. I recently released a water leopard, and then so I sculpted a leopard first, and then I'm like, oh, this is a nice mesh, so I just kept it. The one that's released on Patreon has all these like swirls and like rippling water textures on it. But now I have a nice panther as well. So yeah, you can kind of get a better visual of what this means. I don't modify them too much, depending. I mean, for the clothing, I definitely do. But for my items especially, I can just grab like, here's an upright base, bam, we're good to go. I'll probably bring this item asset library up again when I'm decorating the professor. Ooh, I like the pipe. We're gonna append that right now just so I don't forget about it. Fancy. I can just like tuck that into his belt or something. Okay, let me go ahead and delete this again. Ooh, I like these little vials too. Now we're done with that. Back to the professor. And now I'm going to put on this lovely skirt that I think is going to work quite nicely. This actually will need a decent amount of modification, I believe. I just wanted to try it. I can finally get rid of his modesty shorts. Obviously, I don't have an issue with it, but I'm not sure if YouTube would understand exactly what's going on here. Like, I don't know. It's not nudity, but it is. I don't know. I grabbed the skirt mostly because it already has this ruffled edge and I want to make it look very tattered and stuff. Doc says nice. Also, aw, that panther, right? Came out really nice. All right, we're going to mask the bottom part of this belt, bring it forward just a touch. That way all my clothing is layering correctly. It definitely looks like he just has a really lovely skirt right now. We're gonna work on it. But still, goodness, how far are we into the stream? I've been sculpting for 30 minutes and we've gone from this image on the left to the one on the right. Yes, very happy. Obviously, I'm using a lot of assets I've sculpted before, but the face really came out nice, and then I did that on stream. All right, I'm gonna split this in 2 separate pieces, and we're gonna try to make this work for my purposes. I really think that I can. Ooh, one thing that I realized is that it's folded right over left on this side, and it's flipped on the bottom. So let's go ahead and mirror that. There we go. And now I can line this up so it actually looks like a continuous piece. There we go. That's making more sense. It's still a very pretty skirt, but we're making progress. I'm gonna go ahead and drop a quick save by clicking number 9 on my computer. And I'm gonna put on some boots on his feet. Yeah, if you have a very keen eye, over the years you'll see assets that I reuse. Like I have a lot of boots that I like to reuse, that kind of stuff. But even I'm surprised at how different all my models turn out looking. When I first started using an asset library, I mean, it's of my own stuff, but I was pretty hesitant because I didn't want my models to be looking samey. I mean, obviously I don't mind if they look like they're from the same creator because they are, they're all done by me. But you know what I'm saying. But so far, I haven't had that issue at all. I'm actually really happy with how they turn out. There we are. This is still just a very feminine, pretty looking skirt. So let's go ahead and making it a bit more tattered. That's working very well. Excellent. Oh, coming up here, I'll be taking a bit of a longer break than usual. I didn't have breakfast, I just had coffee. So instead of taking like a 2-minute break, my first break will be more like 10, 15 minutes because I'll be eating an early lunch. But then I'll be coming back. I'll put a little timestamp in the chat too to let you guys know exactly when I'm coming back. I know y'all are patient and not worried about that, but I don't want to just disappear and leave you guys hanging. All right, that's better. And then I'm gonna manipulate these pieces right here to give this more like wispy look. And I'm gonna show you guys what I'm talking about. I have a reference I really liked. So this reference right here. Obviously it's a woman and he's already like, it looks like a skirt kind of, but it just looks so ghostly and ethereal. So I want to keep that. A rat girl's here. Hello and welcome. She says, a ghost professor, you say? Yes. So right now he is just Professor, but as I continue sculpting him, I'm gonna give like these wispy, almost shadow looking like deformations on one side of his body. I'm realizing part of the reason he has more of this feminine silhouette is because I made this belt right here really accentuate his hips nicely, which is fine, but not the look I was going for. So right now I'm just doing some minor and careful adjustments to his silhouette. I think I might want the belt to be a bit more off-centered as well. Making sure my pivot point is in the center, doing a soft rotate, and now let's refit this belt. To do all these little changes, I'm just using the move brush. And then being careful so the belt doesn't come out too lumpy. I'm mostly keeping an eye on the buckle because that's a hard surface material, so that's what's really going to give away if it's looking deformed. All right, very good. Also going to tuck in these parts of the belt that didn't blend very nicely. There we are. All right, I'm definitely gonna be playing around with this bottom. It's a skirt, let's be real. He's wearing a dress. But to give it more of like that silhouette, so I did this big taper on the bottom, and it's really gonna give that like ghostly anti-gravity look. Batgirl says, really cinch that waist down, right? I'm gonna make him very lanky and kind of emaciated looking when I get into Transformers Master. Doc says, some ghost professors just have some hips going on. It's true, even these hips do not lie. I also think a twist modifier might work. Ooh, yes, I'm gonna love that. That's gonna be really cool. I don't want to do that too much until I get into posing. I might have to leave that twist on there right now, just so I don't forget about it, because it's really cool. Okay, I'll do that when I pose. All right, this is working out quite well. I'm also going to be replacing his hands with these spooky hands. They're pretty monstrous looking. I think I used this on like a dark sorcerer a long time ago. I might even only have one hand look all monstrous like this. I'm gonna have one hand that's kind of grabbing his face. So I'll probably put it on this one. I like that. All right. I'm gonna select the body right now, and we are going to smush just this one hand into nothingness. Boop, tiny hand. I'm doing this just so it's not in the way, and the reason why I'm not deleting the mesh is because I have multiple subdivision levels, so I can't delete parts of the mesh. Subdiv just means I can go from this low poly one to this high detail one, so I can go back and forth. And that's what allows my posing to be pretty seamless and easy. All right, he's got one spooky hand and one normal hand. And I don't mind if his hand looks a little broken and wavy, because that's kind of the appeal. That's kind of what we're going for here. Pet agrees, says those are some creepy hands. Batgirl also adds they need some stiletto nails. They might need that. Batgirl says, when I wear extensions, I have long stilettos on one hand and then a more practical hand. It's a look. That's really funny. One's fabulous, one's for actually doing stuff. Very nice. All right, I don't like that all these fingers are like the exact same length. His middle finger and his ring finger need to be longer. There we go. It's a small adjustment, but makes my brain happy. There we go. It's boopy. I like that it's a different color as well. I'm gonna play with the poly paint quite a bit here. All right, not like that. Stop. There we go. All right, I've dropped some paint on all aspects of the model. And now I'm gonna go through and add some gradients because it's like one of my favorite things to do. I'm also just gonna have the boots be dark because they're not like a super important piece, so they don't need fabulous paint. That's a look. You know, I don't hate it, but that's not, he's gonna have a shirt. That's for a different kind of model. All right, I like the idea that the roots of his hair are actually a darker color. Maybe it kind of shows that like he's rapidly graying on the outsides, partly because of his unsafe experiments. So maybe he really isn't that old. It's just an experiment gone wrong. Yeah, it's got more of that salt and pepper look. I still feel like his skin tone looks too like it's not dead enough. That's better. Pat says, ghostly pinup. Well, I'd say I'm very happy with the progress. If people are just joining the stream, you're like, why are there two totally different models on the screen? The model on the left is the starting point. So if you're like, how in the world did we get from this to this? You're in the right place. It's literally recorded live. All right, I'm going to stretch this collar up because I think a large dramatic collar would suit him. I'm also going to mask the bottom part of it so it doesn't deform too much. There we are. Let's give more like a vampire look here. He's definitely not skinny and tall enough. All right, I'm gonna lower the belt as well, kind of give him a straighter silhouette. And then I'm also gonna refit the skirt. I mean, his very masculine, definitely not a skirt that I appended, lab coat. There we are. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm gonna move that seam over a bit. Again, to have more of that like vertical silhouette lines. There we go. I like it. I'm gonna fray the belt too. It's perfectly clean right now and it's not matching the rest of it. To do that, I'm just gonna grab the move brush, go to the end, and just bam, add a little fork to it. I wanna be careful not to have it, them grabbing all of the material right there, otherwise you end up with these really, really thin points and they just don't play super well with 3D printers. It's not the end of the world, but it's not ideal. When I can, I always like to add more material than less. Coming along quite nicely. This is gonna be a really cool model. Monkey said he's actually just 23 years old, but after poor life choices and one too many packs, he looks mature. I agree. That's kind of like my headcanon for this too. Chat says, maybe he just went out partying the night before and ended up in an after party. Oh, I like that almost more. That is punny, and that's excellent. I like this belt piece right here, and I kind of want just like a bunch of them. Wouldn't make a ton of sense. I'm just gonna do it anyway and see how it looks. I didn't describe that super well, so just hang on for a second. I'm gonna do it, and then you'll see what I had in mind if it worked. And if it didn't work, I'm just gonna delete it and whatever. All right, where is that extra piece? Where did it go? There it is. I think I need to keep the belt buckle too for this to work though. And I move pretty quickly while I work. So if you're kind of hanging out, but you're also like an aspiring or active artist, definitely ask questions. I've no secrets here. I'm happy to explain exactly what I'm doing. There we are. So now I have this extra piece, and I thought it'd be cool if maybe I just had more belted on here. I like the idea of them being different heights, and then I can really add to that ghostly shredded fabric billowing look. Yep, that's gonna look super cool. It worked. Excellent. I mentioned this in my previous live stream, but never forget to like play when you're creating art. Just try things. It doesn't all have to be super efficient. It's fine if it didn't work. Whenever I'm doing organic deformations, I like to use a transpose line. I'm gonna mask it a little higher this time. Let's see what I can get away with as far as kind of like that billowing look I was talking about. Very nice. I'm gonna make sure the tail of it still touches the model somewhere, just so it's not a pain to 3D print. And even though most of my people that support me on Patreon, I know they have resin printers, I do have quite a few that have just FDM, so I like to think about them too and not be too ridiculous with all my little thin elements flapping about. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and merge these two together. They still have separate poly groups. If I want to go through them later and adjust, I still can. There we are. I like it. That's a really, really fun silhouette. Rat Girl says, I'm thinking of the shackles trailing from Marley and Burley in Muppets Christmas Carol, which is probably an overly specific callback. Yeah, it's pretty specific. I don't know what you're talking about, but I appreciate you sharing it anyway. I'm gonna make these buttons larger. There we go. That looks more professor-y to me. I feel like they're bigger on one side than the other. I'm probably just going crazy. Oh, ZBrush crashed. No worry. That's why I have my obsessive quick saves. I guess ZBrush also didn't want me to mess with the buttons too much. Alright, where did my obsessive quick saves leave me? Exactly where I left off. Beautiful. Alright. This is gonna be a really cool model. I have like dark professors and wizards and witches and stuff. I don't have any that look this human. They're usually much more monstrous. All right, I'm gonna give him more of a high-low look there. All right. And then I have a couple items I think would pair really nicely. One of them is this little armor piece. I already have like a shadowy wisp on. I think it looked really nice on his shoulder. Yes, very cool. I think I last used this piece on my fire genasi. Talk about a difference. All right, I like that the colors are contrasting, but in order to have like this ghostly look, I really think there needs to be more like whites and blues. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go with a more muted blue than that. There we go, much better. That's that ghostly look that I wanted. Again, white for the base, and then coming in with that bluish tone. That's better. So since I'm gonna have that as the accent, I'm gonna go through and kind of replace a lot of these black accents I have with white. Again, this has no bearing on the 3D print at all. It just makes me happy. I really started doing it again because you guys asked for it. I had a model that already had some paint on it, and someone was like, hey, that looks cool. And I was like, okay, so I just kept doing it. That's much, much, much better. All right, we're gonna mute these purples, make them more of just a gray, because otherwise they're not reading as well. Some purple is fine, but bam, he's been totally recolored. I like this much more. Spoopy. Very cool. Maybe I'll add some little blue highlights in his hair too. Rat Girl says, I'll link a picture in Discord. Sounds good. I was about to ask why you were painting as you went. Well, now you know. Okay. Honestly, I just talk the entire time I stream. You listen long enough, I'll probably answer your question. Doc says, it makes sense to me. I think colorizing it while you're working on would really help figure out if you're getting the vibe you want. And that's true. So I used to always paint my models about a year or two ago. And then somewhere around the 600th model I had sculpted, I didn't really need it anymore, so I stopped doing it. And again, I just sculpted for myself and I didn't live stream, so yes. Is lunch done? Lunch is done. Okay, I'll be back in like 10 minutes, guys. So actually, it's 11:47 my time. I'll be back by noon. Thank you guys for hanging out. This has been really fun. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. I'll be back. had a super good lunch. Husband made me a chicken wrap deliciousness. Find you a man that can cook. It's the best. Also just feeling a lot better. Also, Rat Girl, I looked in the Discord and saw the thing you were referencing. I didn't know it was called that. Like, I recognized the image immediately. Like, that is some deep memory somewhere. All right, this is going swimmingly. Pat says ahoy. Thanks for the welcome back. All right, well, our starting point on the left is so outdated at this point, it doesn't even make sense. So I'm gonna update our sticker here on the left with our new progress point. Oh, and I'm gonna update our lighting a bit. You guys know I love me some dramatic lighting. Usually I like a warm highlight, but I might wanna do a blue one for this model, being that he is ghostly and whatnot. Yep, we're gonna do a blue highlight instead. Lovely. Oh, Taylor's here. Hello and welcome. Today we're making a spectral ghostly professor. So this is where we're at. It's the stream has been going swimmingly. Started off a bit crabby. I just kind of had a crabby morning. But streams really kind of perked me up, and then I had a lot of assets from my library that actually worked, which is great because, oh my goodness, this week has been kind of a lot of back-to-back sculpting from scratch. Pardon me. I do like sculpting from scratch, don't get me wrong. This is my first week doing a whole week of live streaming, and it does take a little bit more out of me, but every time I stream, it takes a little bit less. So I want to keep at it because I really think it's paying off. I've already met so many more people streaming, and my models are coming out more polished for it. It also gets me out of my head a little bit. Sometimes it's easy when it's just you looking at a model. You know, we all have like that inner self-critic, so I don't know. Just as I'm creating it, seeing you guys being enthusiastic and excited about it too, it's really nice. All right, so at this point, I want to pin on these little details that I have. I like these little ghostly vials. I think I'm going to pin them on the left side of his belt. Just a nice little detail to paint. I don't want to make them too small, otherwise they're a pain to paint. And then we're going to add a small, gentle curve to this so it fits to the belt. Not too much of a curve to where it's going to like make the bottles look really weird. There we are. Just a little curve. I'm very happy with that detail. Let's scoot it closer to his body so that way we don't have this big overhang to deal with later. Lovely. I don't know if I can find a place for this pipe, but I feel like it suits him really well and I want to put it somewhere. I might even just put it under the stitch right here. I'm gonna leave it there. I think it's really fun. I'm also going to extrude the back of it into him because it doesn't affect the silhouette or the frame and just makes it a lot sturdier. So it's not just like this little piece that can break off once it's 3D printed. All right, I'm going to merge these decoration pieces down and I'm gonna pin these to the base belt. All right, those are all now part of one subtool. That's why they're all highlighted together. And while I'm at it, I'll even pin these other floaty belts to it. They're still a separate poly group, so I can go through later and adjust them as I want. Taylor asked, is this an alchemist with ice magic? Very close. It's kind of like a mad scientist look where something went wrong and now he has like this ghost element to him. As I continue sculpting, I'm gonna have more of these whiffs coming off of him and he's gonna look more and more ethereal. But honestly, this could work beautifully for an ice alchemist as well. I don't have any like hard edge elements that would look like ice, but just painting it this way is good enough too. That's one thing I love about D&D minis is just like, depending how you paint it, you can really repurpose minis to be all kinds of things. All right, we're getting pretty close to posing here. I don't think I have multiple subdivisions on these, but they're well constructed enough that I should be able to bend them without much of an issue. I'm gonna scoot this little ghostly deck, like, what do I call this? Bangle up more closer to his shoulder. I'm also gonna make that wisp much larger. Very nice. The spiral brush is going to be really helpful as I continue to work on this model. There we are. I like it. All right, let's go ahead and check through all of our subtools here and get prepared for posing. Taylor says, glasses with broken frames and cracked lenses. I thought about it. I kind of like how his face came out though. And I don't want to put too many elements on his face because, again, their minis are printed so small. But I am thinking about it. I already had goggles pinned on here that I made. They're actually right here. So these were the ones I was kind of thinking about. We'll see. Taylor says, I'm curious how you go about glasses with the sculpt. Seems like 3D printing that could result in errors. That's true. Pretty much what I do is I make sure the lenses are really thick and they extrude like into their head. I think I'm also gonna pass on glasses just so I can maybe split his face down the middle and do more of like a pulling wisp look on half of it. Taylor says they could be very low on his nose. That's true. Pat likes the glasses too. I'll think about it. We'll get this pose. So part of the pose is actually gonna be covering his face. He's gonna have like a hand reaching up and like kind of like hiding half of his face. So we'll see. All good stuff though. All right, in preparation for posing, we're gonna group like things. I just find it easier to quickly mask and unmask when I'm in Transpose Master. So all of his hair, because goodness, he has a lot of hair, I'm gonna be merging down. His eyeballs are gonna be separate. I have a different material on them that makes them shiny, so I'm keeping the eyeballs separate. Same with the buttons, and what else? I can pin these buttons back to his sleeves. There we are. That's all one piece. Very nice, very nice. And I'll probably also tatter the edges of this layer. It's so low poly right now, it's not going to want me to deform it much, which is fine. That's a fine, like a smaller, fine detail that's going to come later. I'm just kind of putting the edges on it right now, just so I don't forget about it. That's fine. There we are. All right, now where are we at? just fine tuning any meshes I need to address before we start posing. I think we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and drop a hard save because it's been a bit. Looks like an auto save's already happening. I'll let that finish first. ZBrush does not like to be interrupted when it's doing an auto save. Brett Walsh is here. I think you're new, so hi and welcome. You say, "Sup, what's you making?" I am making a spectral professor. So he also looks kind of ice alchemisty, someone else pointed out, which could also work. But in this case, think of like a professor where an experiment had gone wrong. So half of him is like apparating into a ghost. I'm starting to get elements of that on this side of his body. Once I pose him, I'm going to sculpt more onto his face, kind of like it's smoking away almost. It's going to be pretty cool. All right, let's jump into Transpose Master and let's get this going. But yeah, for anyone else that's new or lurking, my name is Mia. I'm part of M3M. It's my husband and I. We've been doing this for about 5 years now, but we make 3D printable minis for a living. So this is one of them. Every model that I make on stream is actually a request from Patreon. I don't think I have that linked. I actually totally forgot. I usually pin that at the beginning of my stream. And again, there's no pressure by any means, but this is how I make my living. And you can check that out. That's where all these models are available. I usually pin this in the beginning. Again, I just forgot. Brett says, "It's looking really cool. I dig the color palette." Thank you. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, 3D printing isn't in color quite yet. They are a thing, but it's very, very expensive. I think like a color 3D printer will run you like 50 to 100 grand. But you can print these out and then paint them yourself. Still pretty cool. Brett says, "I'm a 3D printer for a living, just looking to get more into modeling myself." Oh, very, very cool. So you're familiar with the space already. Awesome. Sometimes just explaining 3D printing alone can be a bit daunting. Like it's funny, like I feel like my grandparents picked it up like that. Like they understood what I was talking about. And then I'll meet people that are my age and they just cannot wrap their head around it. And I'm like, you know, a printer, but 3D, like toys and little things or dental impressions, used for all kinds of stuff. As far as wanting to learn more about modeling, I do teach actually. If you're interested in that, I can tell you more about it. All right, I have a reference for my pose. Let's pull that up. And let me actually show you my references really quick so you kind of know where this came from. I see we have a couple more people lurking about, so let's refresh y'all. All right, so this is a Patreon request. They said, this is their little description here. They said, "I'd love to see some kind of spectral professor with a kind of mad scientist look about them. Lab coat, messy hair, almost like an experiment gone wrong." So then I went online and I kind of found some references that I thought that fit. Again, you can tell the model I made here is kind of an amalgamation of all of these images. And then this is the reference for the pose I'm going to use. I actually purchased these poses, references from the Pose Archive. I highly recommend them. Their stuff is awesome. They have some light NSFW stuff there, just a heads up. But their stuff rocks. Alrighty. Brett says, "I do mostly cosplay stuff." Oh, very, very cool. I don't do a lot of cosplay, but I admire from afar. I think I'd be too shy to actually go out dressed up. I really enjoy the events though, and I love seeing people come up with it. It's so freaking cool. All right, I like to pose from the bottom up. So I'm gonna hide any elements that I don't want deformed quite yet. No pants. And we're just gonna grab this leg because I'm gonna be pulling most of his weight, pushing forward on this leg. There we are. Taylor says, "I think the newer generation thinks of 3D as purely digital, like for graphics in a video game or visual effects, while the older generation thinks of 3D in actual definition, 3 dimensions." That's a very good point. That's probably what the disconnect is. I feel like a lot of people that are around my generation don't really understand what I do until they actually see a live stream of it and they're like, "Oh, it's like sculpting with clay, but digitally." And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what it's like. All right, we've moved that knee forward and this other leg can be moved back. Once I'm done with that, then I will actually adjust his layers and skirts and belts to match that. Got kind of like a funny butt going on there. I like to make sure that his feet are going to be level by the end of this because they're going to be on a flat base. I also do that so that way if people are printing just the model itself without the base, it's much easier to fit. You know, I'm probably biased. I bet you most people that are around my age understand 3D printing no problem. I kind of expect them to. So when they don't, it probably stands out to me more than when they do. You know, confirmation bias. All right, I'm gonna start adjusting the skirt here. I'm gonna mask the front half and just carefully mask and move that pose. It's pretty low poly, so I'm gonna be doing a lot of these finer deformations when I'm outside Transpose Master. Having the fabric fall straight down right here after his knee is really important to actually show what's happening underneath. It just makes the whole pose look more convincing. Brett says, I really want to try my hand at VR modeling. Have you ever dabbled in that? I sure have. I find it very challenging. It does not click with me, but I've made almost 1,000 3D printable minis. I mean, seriously, I have 850 released on Patreon alone, and then that's just what has been published. So I'm very used to my workflow, and a lot of my workflow is dependent on hotkeys on a keyboard. It just makes my workflow so much faster. So moving to VR, like, it was fun. I specifically dabbled in the game Dreams on PS4 and made some stuff there. Totally doable, very fun, very cool. A lot of people have accomplished very cool things there. Another YouTuber, Jazza, he exclusively will sculpt in VR. He's also just an incredible artist in general, though, so that's not very fair. I mean, you can give him toothpicks and he's going to make the Mona Lisa, you know? But I just want to be clear, just because it doesn't work for me doesn't mean I don't think highly of it. It's very, very cool, and I recommend trying it out. It's very fun. Pet says, a version of the professor without legs and the jacket floating would be really cool. I agree. Now I wish he just didn't have legs at all, but we're too far. Brett says, the issue is when most people hear 3D printing, the brain automatically goes to flexy dragons and fidget toys. Yeah, that's true. I think that's a big association for sure. And then Brett continues, which is so frustrating because that's the most basic brain dead version of 3D printing. Oh, that's kind of harsh. I agree, but like, I try to be softer about it just because 3D printing can be intimidating. And I don't mind it. I actually have one of those little flexy articulate dragons on my desk. My husband printed it for me, kind of for fun. It's like that two-tone filament. I hear what you're saying, for sure, but it doesn't bother me. I just like people being around the hobby. And Brett adds, I love Jazza. Yeah, isn't he great? Taylor says, conversely, I find the old generation finds it a lot harder to understand what 3D means for video games and film compared to new generations. Absolutely. I do my best not to be too like gatekeepery when it comes to 3D printing because it can be intimidating, and I know a lot of people think that you need to have like a very be like a tech person to be able to do it. So I'm always trying to encourage more people to jump into it, even if it's intimidating. I think that problem solving process is just so important, and a lot of people just don't get enough of it. When I was in college, I was a engineering ambassador. Unfortunately, I work with kids, and I don't like children, but I love teaching, so it tested me for sure. But guiding people through that problem-solving process and to not get frustrated when things go wrong, because my favorite mantra is nothing ever works ever. And it's true. If you expect that, it doesn't bother you. And I find ooh, that's gonna work well. I find myself getting a lot more done when I don't expect things to go smoothly. Pat says, I love Jazz. It's such a talented guy. I wonder how God can be so positive and so talented and his brother is so weird. Oh, I don't know anything about his brother. I'll leave that be. I don't want to talk bad about his family. I just don't know anything about it. But yeah, he seems like a very, Jazz just seems lovely. Very peppy, for sure. I imagine he's not always like that. But I love the YouTube persona. And everyone has that to an extent. I definitely think I sound a little softer and chipper when I live stream. I think. I could ask my husband. I'm not very good at having different faces or personas. It's kind of just what you see is what you get. Brett says, I gotta get back to work on these helmets. It's nice chatting with you. I'll definitely pop in some more stream. Yeah, subscribe or just remember I stream Monday through Friday, 11 Eastern time. That's like my really solid schedule, so I'm pretty easy and predictable to find. Thank you so much for tuning in. Maybe I'll catch you later. So in my early streams, I was very shy about asking people to subscribe, but now they have that little alert thing. I don't know. I love that something pops up on the screen when you guys subscribe now. It's like the smallest little bit of direct interaction. It just makes me happy. I've only actually seen it work once. I know it's worked more than that. So I have my laptop to the left of me, my tablet in front of me. So when someone new says something in the chat, the whole screen moves. So it's very eye-catching. But when someone subscribes, I don't watch my own stream. I have a tiny monitor so I can make sure it's not frozen, but that's why I don't say thank you for when you guys subscribe. Just in case someone did, and like, hey, you didn't say anything. I'm like, yeah, I don't have a screen in front of me where it's big enough to notice. As I continue to live stream, I definitely plan to improve my setup and be able to see more. It's been a great stream though. Thank you guys for hanging out and people that are chatting. I always love chatting with you, but lurkers, I appreciate you guys too. I mentioned this on like every stream, but like I am a lurker. If I'm not literally the person doing the stream, I don't comment, I don't do anything. I just sit in the background. It's where I like to be. I was like that in college too. I always sat in the very back. I was a good student though. When I was in class. I guess getting good grades and being a good student aren't necessarily the same thing. All right, I'm gonna hunch him forward a bit now. And I'm also gonna make sure I start twisting his rib cage and just kind of from his abdomen up. That'll make this pose seem a little less stiff. Luckily, I have these buttons right here that kind of serve as nice little marker points for me. Alright, I'm actually hiding his entire vest right now because I want to make sure that I'm not accidentally deforming the edges of that. There we go. Now I can show that again. Now I'm going to pose his arm so that he is grabbing his face like I mentioned earlier in the stream. To make poses softer, I always try to make sure that the elbows are closer to the chest. But in this case, he's going to be somewhat in pain looking, so I want to make sure there is some stiffness in his upper body. Time to pose the evil bows. All right. Looks like I might need to move his whole shoulder up a bit here, just so that it will reach his face. Looking good. And then going with the transpose line and flipping that up. Ooh, I forgot to move his whole shoulder forward. Let's do that really quick. There we go. Now let's move his hand up. I love how distorted this hand is. Really spooky and really exaggerated. It's gonna paint really well. Like always, I'll need to resculpt this elbow area. We don't have to talk about elbows. And I'm gonna make his hand a bit skinnier because it's all gonna be touching his face anyway, so I don't need to worry about the elements being too thin. Also gonna adjust the cuff on his jacket here because it's looking a bit wonky. There we go. Make sure that's moving with gravity somewhat. And then doing a little elbow bump. I can't do much of it right now because this is lower poly. Let's go ahead and thin up the hand as well. I might even just put like a spiral brush on this. Yes, that's gonna work really well taking that ghostly texture, but I'm not gonna do that in Transpose Master. I'm gonna wait till I'm out of it and I can go back through and add some more polys here so I have more to work with. Time to pose his other arm. Going back in with the Transpose Master. Or Transpose Line, not Transpose Master. Also going to move his hands away from his body just slightly, just putting a little tension in his wrist. I find that helps a lot. Adjusting his sleeve and also making an indent right here. There we go. Reads a bit nicer. I'm liking the pose, but it's not enough yet. Needs more. Make him a bit taller, and then we're gonna start adjusting this layer. Which I could probably do this outside of Transpose Master. But I think I might want to hunch him over even more. Yes, let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go right under his breastbone, make sure I grab both of his arms, and then we'll pivot towards the top here. Making sure I have the gizmo centered on his sternum bone. And bend. I'm actually gonna hunch him over even more, and I can bend his head up to compensate for the fact that now he's looking at the ground, and we don't want that. All right, go ahead and mask his neck and all of his luscious hair and the eyeballs. Placing the gizmo at the base of his neck. There we are. You can kind of push his neck forward too, kind of give him this hunched, weirdly long neck. Usually wouldn't do that, but he's kind of an odd fellow anyway. Actually doesn't look too bad. And then this hand's a separate piece, so I can always adjust and move this around as I need to. Let's make sure he's not picking his nose. That's really not good. Doesn't make him very spooky when he's got a finger in his nose. Gonna put a dent in this sleeve as well. Just like that. And the shoulder piece isn't reading as well. I'm gonna need to reposition that to be not on like an armband, but really on top of his shoulder. It's gonna give him a stronger silhouette. But I can do that outside of Transpose Master. All right, I don't think I have any other pieces that need to be moved together. So we'll be leaving this stage of posing very soon. Looking good. His arm needs some love. It will get some in just a bit. All right, now the fun part. Making him more ghostly. To apply this, I'll be doing T-pose, sub-T, and I'll take all his adjustments and spit them back onto my set tools. Doc says, a hunch makes sense for a normal professor anyway, let alone a ghostly one. Very true. And then Doc says, not the best posture in the education sphere. No, definitely not. All right, we're gonna make these separate pieces. Even though college wasn't my favorite time, I still had professors that I enjoyed. I mean, they're just people, you know? It was just tricky because some of them, they just wanted to do research. They didn't want to teach, which is fine. I totally get like it kind of the two come together. But engineering is hard. And so I needed professors that wanted to teach. I didn't always have that. Obviously, I did just fine, but it would have been nice if it wasn't just reading off a PowerPoint slide. One of my big complaints about engineering school is I actually couldn't find enough problem sets to practice with. It'd just be like the one in the book and like the one in class. And I'm like, I need like 50 to run through. And it's not so much because it's like, I didn't get the concept the first time. Or I guess so. It just, there's so many different ways to apply one concept, and it helps to have as many examples of that as possible. All right, that arm's looking better, and it's not even any fabric folds on it yet. Once I add those, it's really gonna look nice. So right now I'm really paying a lot of attention to his silhouette and how all of this is going to come together. This is if your base mesh sucked, this process sucks. But if you really spent time on all the assets you've added to your model, this is like the most fun part, and sometimes like the easiest part. It all just starts to come together. Doc says, excuse me, I'm a librarian, so I'm professor adjacent. Definitely some are better than others. Absolutely. I didn't know that you're a librarian. That's lovely. I'm gonna have a lot of fun moving the hair around as well. He just has so much hair too. I'm gonna pull his goatee a little farther back on his chin, just so there's a larger contact point. It doesn't change the visual of the model at all, but it makes it a little bit sturdier when it's 3D printed. All right, I don't like how this piece came out, so we're gonna just delete that bottom part, and then we're gonna really have fun with this mesh. I'm gonna subdivide one more time and then go in with Dynamesh. I might even try ZRemesher and see where that gets me. If I can, I prefer working with the ZRemesh mesh than Dynamesh. They really use the same words a lot here. Ooh, that worked out quite nice. It's just a little cleaner, nicer to work with. All right, this model is turning out fantastic. I'm definitely gonna be able to finish it on stream. I was very, very careful with all my elements because yesterday, oh my goodness, I had this coat that fought me a lot. So I wasn't able to share it on stream with y'all. But this one will be a free Google Drive download link for y'all. Hey, I said it right the first time. If you're watching this stream in the future, it's not free. But I have a pretty smoking deal on Patreon where you can get like hundreds and hundreds of models for a couple bucks. If you're interested in that, I have it pinned on the chat. All right. Let's get some wispy goodness going on here. I'm gonna do the same treatment to his hands. I'm also gonna smooth out this detail right here because you can't see it anyway. And if I Dynamesh and rework the mesh, it's gonna try to incorporate that in. And I don't need ZBrush working that hard on something you can't see. All right. I'll be using the spiral brush quite a bit here. And if you're wondering how I'm changing the direction, if you hold Alt, it changes what direction the spiral spirals. Clockwise or counterclockwise. I want to be careful because if I'm adding these curves and wisps, it's just going to make his fingers look broken, which isn't necessarily the look that I'm trying to go for. So I'll add little wispy elements on like his knuckles and that kind of stuff. I can probably pick like one fingernail to go a little bit farther. And I want to make sure I have a couple very clear large swirls just so it all reads well. The bottom of his hand I can really push. There we go, that's cool. I remember when I was first learning ZBrush, it was largely really frustrating because I knew what I wanted and it was just so hard to figure out how to make that happen. I'm just making sure all these fingers are touching his face because I can't really get away with his finger anatomy here because they're not real. Also going to scoot that finger away from his mouth and his nose. Can I just make that finger touch his beard? We'll see. I can probably fit it in there somewhere. I'm really surprised with how smooth this model is coming along. It's probably about time to clean up my quick saves too. Alrighty. Even though I like to have all of these fingers touching his face, they really don't need to because they're all pointing upwards, and that's the orientation that I print as well. So I don't have to worry about it not printing. I will go ahead and flip on the underside of his hands and grab my move brush with back face mask to add some more material. There we go. Excellent. I'm going to subdivide his hand one more time and I can go in with some really crisp spirals right now. I also have a damn standard alpha that I like quite a bit. That's going to get a rougher texture onto his fingers. And then we're also going to pinch his fingers a bit because they're looking a little chunky. There we go. And no nose picking is happening anymore, so we look good. It's such a relaxing part of the sculpt. I can kind of just go in, take my time, and think about what areas I want to be more dramatic or less dramatic. a big part of what's eye-catching about this model is going to be the lower half of this coat. So I'm going to go ahead and flare it out and maybe add in that little spiral I talked about earlier. That's fun. All right, it's looking very nice. Almost a little spidery. I also love that I'm able to make all these so long, because again, they're all going to be able to touch the base no problem and still have a very wispy, ethereal look to it, but it won't be any harder to 3D print. And as I mentioned earlier, even though most of my supporter base uses resin printers, I still like to, I'm always thinking about my FDM people too. Part of that's just kind of ingrained into my workflow because in the beginning, FDM printers were your only option. So I always designed for FDM in the beginning. So these are different than the normal fabric folds that I do for sure. They're gonna be much rougher and more wrinkly. You'll notice that I made sure I found my base shape first before I added these fabric folds. I used to do my fabric folds before I pose, and then I found I was usually just having to go through and redo them anyway. I want these tears to be taller, so I'm going to scoot the whole mesh up and then stretch it. And that's slowly going to give me that longer look. Or I could just mask it myself at the bottom. Lots of ways to get the same effect. Adds a bit more control. I like that better. Making sure it's still fitting the body. And just kind of any areas that clip through, I kind of just sneak back in. Looks like I accidentally grabbed his shoulder here. I just go to low subdiv and smooth that in. There we go, all fixed. I'll want to Dynamesh this piece here too, because I'm going to be going in and deforming it as well with some swirls. All right, that should be high enough resolution. That'll be plenty. Then go in with my spiral brush, add some more of that wispy goodness. I can also add RGB to this brush, so when I do the spirals, I'll automatically add color as well. Pretty nifty, yeah? I'll still need to go through and add fabric folds though, so this reads more clearly. To do that, I use the standard brush and lazy radius. There we go. That really added a lot to the model. Now I'm gonna go through and do the same kind of treatment with the vest. Making sure all these fabric folds are pronounced enough so that they are nice little paint catchers. Also paying attention to which direction his body is twisting, and then I can emphasize that by using these fabric folds. Every sculptural detail I add, I always am thinking about how is this making the model more clear and more interesting. Sometimes it can do both, but every stroke needs to do at least one of the two. Lovely. Oh, this is really a cool one, isn't it? I guess the real question is like, where am I gonna put this model? Is it gonna go under human? I think so. Kind of looks like a character like that you would fight rather than a player character, but I could see him working well for either. I definitely don't want to put him in the bestiary. I had a feeling I was really gonna like this model, and I ended up having even more sculpting it than I expected, which is always a nice surprise. I'm really glad this is going so smoothly too, because yesterday was one of those days where it felt like I could not find enough time in the day to get everything done, which is never a good feeling. And it also wasn't true. I had a very high expectation for how much I wanted to get done. But at the time, I didn't think it was that unreasonable until I went to try and do it. And then I was like, oh, this was never gonna happen. Right now I'm just going through and adjusting all my layers to make sure nothing is clipping, because I have quite a few pieces right now that are going through each other, and they shouldn't. It's not the end of the world if this kind of cleanup isn't perfect, but it sure adds up if you don't stay on top of it. There we go, that's nice. I'm really happy with these little wispy belts that I added. I hope you guys have been having a good week as well. I appreciate you spending some of your week with me here. I think it's really cool that a lot of you guys kind of just hang out while you're at work. That also has to do partly with the time that I live stream. But still, it's very cool to be part of your day. All right, we are just about done. I'm gonna go through and start adding some details and colors right here. Or not colors, but like finer details. And then we'll be pretty much set. I'm gonna go with this alpha and just very carefully add some weathering. Before I do that, I'm actually gonna Dynamesh this mesh to make sure we don't have any issues like yesterday. There we go. Perfect. I want it to be worn and weathered looking, but I don't want to absolutely distort the mesh so much that it's difficult to post-process. The rougher that post-processing is, the more likely there'll be mesh errors later on. I've actually never seen them affect the print, but I like to make sure they're not there anyway, just part of putting out good work. Looking quite nice. Let's put a fun render on this. I like going through these presets right here. I have two that I really like, which is Radial Overlay and then Preview AO, which is short for Ambient Occlusion. That looks very fancy. All right, so this has been a pretty quick one. I'm surprised at the progress here. So we've been streaming for just about 2 hours on the dot now, and we have pretty much this completed character. I'm really, really happy with this. He looks amazing. Just taking a moment to kind of enjoy it. So yeah, I've been doing this full time since 2019, and creating 3D printable minis and sculpting them has just been an absolute joy. And again, I have 850 or so available or more on Patreon, and that's shared with all my supporters. And I'm not even close to getting tired of it. I look at this and there's still so many more characters and creatures I want to create. If you want to be part of that, I take requests on Patreon. And that's what this was. So let's actually review the requests that we got and make sure that we are hitting the mark. The requester asked for some kind of spectral professor with a mad scientist look about them. Almost like an experiment gone wrong, left him as a ghost. I think we nailed it. And clean up this part of his neck really quick to make sure it actually connects to his collarbone. Just a nice little detail there. Be nice to paint too. Some of these buttons got a little wobbly, so let's straighten them up again. Looking good. Well, this is the point in the live stream where I'm going to transition to the post-processing phase. That also means that we're very close to sharing the free 3D printable model on stream. If you're watching in the future, it will not be shared for free anymore, but you can still get it by supporting me on Patreon. All right. Let's make that thumb a little more substantial. Phew. Oops. Very nice. All right, I'm going to drop a hard save and roll right into post-processing. The way that I do that is I just go subtool by subtool and make sure that everything is clean and ready for 3D printing. I typically like to start from the top down. So let's work with his hair first. His hair is quite fabulous. I'm just moving some of these tufts even further away from his face because it's quite fun. All right, what about any of these wisps that are towards his face? I want to make sure that they're actually connecting. And I'll do that with Move Back Face Mask. There we go. His hairline's a little funny, so let's go ahead and clean that up. I can go with Damn Standard. Reset my alpha. And let's carve out a hairline that makes sense. That's better. Gosh, he does have luscious hair though. Again, kind of fits that headcanon that he's actually not that old. It's just some experiments have gone horribly wrong. Fantastic. All right. We're going to pin this new one, from which is finished model on the left here. And now post-process. Because as we post-process, we're probably going to lose a lot of the poly paint. All right, let's drop a quick save just in case I have any issues I want to revisit. And now back to my process, which I start with remeshing by union. So any little mesh that's kind of overlapping or intersecting, it's going to meld it into one piece. Afterwards, I go through, find any kind of weird artifacts by using auto groups. I delete any problems, close holes, and remesh again. After that, I will go and decimate. Decimation is taking this from many points to less points. That's really all I need to know about that. Currently at 1,000,000 points, let's come down to 200,000. And then I'm looking at the mesh very carefully to make sure I'm not losing too much detail. I want to get as low as possible, but without actually destroying the mesh and making it look pixelated. All right, looking quite nice. No issues. So let's add in some more pieces. Let's add his hand, these wisps, and then perhaps the top part of his coat as well. Looks like there's only very, very minor mesh issues. Go ahead and repair those, and on to remeshing. This is going very smoothly. I hope your day is going as smooth as mine has been going, because this has been a nice change. All right, looking very nice. Let's go ahead and mesh this entire base of the skirt together along with the belts. Also dropping another little quick save just in case there's any issues. I can revisit this point. Also like to make sure that everything is flat. So using those shoes as a reference point, I'm gonna kind of scoot things up. And again, I want everything to touch the base. I might as well add the boots while I'm at it. Yeah, looks like his left heel is a little too high. So I'll just grab that and smush it down. There we go, looking good. Mesh integrity looks pretty good overall. I'm gonna do any little basic repairs right in ZBrush and now decimate. Thank you guys again for hanging out. It's kind of a quicker stream, but it can be fun when that happens because everything just comes together so quickly. It's definitely satisfying for me. It's a little more similar to what I'm used to, my workflow when I'm not live streaming too. If I do continue to make models with this like new upgrade click, just like every couple hours, I might toy with the idea of doing 2 models in a live stream. We'll see. Because when I was first live streaming with y'all again, it took me closer to 3.5 hours to 4 hours to finish a model. We've already brought that all the way down to 2 hours in just a couple weeks of hanging out together. Very good time. And a reminder, if you're kind of like hanging out and you have questions, kind of want to know like what's going on exactly, ask. I'm always happy to share what I'm doing. Even if like you're a creative, you also use ZBrush. I don't have any secrets about my workflow. I'm perfectly transparent. So the top half of the model has been completely remeshed successfully. Now we're doing this bottom half. If this all goes smoothly, we're very, very close to this being shared with y'all for free. I recommend this one on resin printers like usual, but it totally can be printed on FDM. If you do that, I recommend just scaling it up a touch. And then I find tree supports work the best as well. It's going nicely. Let's see if I can decimate that even further without losing detail. Looks good. Also gonna flip it over with the wire mesh turned on to see if I have any issues or things that ZBrush is upset about. Looks pretty good. Not really seeing any problems. I'm always looking at these edges here that I deformed a lot to see if there's any glitches or holes or stuff like that. All right, this is like the final post-processing step. We've worked our way down just to one subtool. So once these are combined and meshed, I can move on to putting a base, making sure he's the appropriate scale for tabletop minis, and then we're set. Like always, I'm making sure to regularly drop quick saves just in case there's a big issue and I need to revisit something earlier in the process. I like to have my finished products somewhere around 250,000 points. If I can, I go as low as possible, but I find 250 is pretty good. I could go lower if my entire audience was only using these as tabletop minis. However, I actually have quite a few people that print my stuff big and more like small statues. So I really want to make sure that resolution is there. Pat says, I wonder for these long skirts, if when working with an extracted mesh, you could have a gap that is not visible between the legs and the clothes. A gap that is not visible. I'm having a hard time visualizing that. I'm trying to think of what you're saying, and I know there's something interesting there. Just for some reason, my brain is just like not computing. Are you saying like making like the top part of this solid? Because if so, there is a way. You could just slice the mesh right there, close holes, and then extract like normally on the lower half of it. I don't use a slice brush very often, but it's extremely useful when I do. I'm surprised the resolution is holding up so well. I'm gonna scoot him down to 225,000 points, see how that looks. Very nice. All right, I don't wanna go any lower than that. All good, no issues, no errors. Let's go ahead and throw him into my end ZPR. Paste the tool. There we are. Very happy with how this model came out. It's very cool. I have this model here just kind of like a reference size. This is one I made a very, very long time ago. I like to make my models slightly larger now. I'm gonna double check to make sure the bottom is perfectly flat. Yep, we are looking good. And now let's put a custom base on here. I have a large library to draw from because I've been doing this for quite a few years, and every time I make a new custom base, I just make sure to save it. I feel like some sort of swirls and general creepiness would be good. Yeah, even like the little flames in a skull pile could be nice. Let's throw it in here and see what I think. Pat says, I've seen some creators that the clothes are always separate pieces that are already watertight without gaps before making a mesh by union. Yes, that's how most of these subtools were. I'm not sure if I did a very good job explaining that. But yeah, each subtool by itself is already pretty much watertight and no issues. When I'm first constructing it, you're right, I do have it with 0 thickness. It's kind of just like this floating element out there. Sometimes adding thickness isn't very exciting, so I don't talk about it as much during the string process, but it is happening. Yeah, I like this little pile of skulls. Let's see if I can scoot them forward. Oh good, I left them a separate part of the mesh, so I can move them. Good. Though it looks like it's gonna work out nicely with them being right there. Let's go ahead and scoot them forward a touch and sink them in. Oops. Pat says, what a great model. Thank you so much. I'm very happy with it too. It makes me really happy to be able to do stuff like this live. You guys can see the whole process come together. These little flames are a little too wispy. I'm gonna go ahead and make them a bit more substantial here. Very nice. And I can lower this entire base just a touch. All right, very nice, here we are. All right, my last step here is to export both of these and then pop them into Mesh Mixer. Let's go ahead and open that up. Looking good. Got some minor issues here, but they all cleared up, no problem. Looks like I want to inspect his face really quick. Oh, no, looks good. All right, we'll call this a ghost professor. No base. On stream, I don't share the pre-supported versions because I didn't have time to print them myself. If you join my Patreon, not only are you supporting the stream and me doing this as an artist full-time, you also get the pre-supported versions of these as well. Which means, in theory, you can just drop them on your build plate, click and print, and you're good to go. Doc says it came out great. Thank you. Pat says, the truth is that I used to see your videos of artists doing wonders with ZBrush. But you don't see me that do it specifically for miniatures. Very true. This is pretty niche. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and upload these files so I can share them with y'all. All right, they have been uploaded. I'm about to put them in the chat right now. Thank you guys for supporting the stream by being here. I really appreciate it. All right, well that is cooking. Gonna give you guys some time to grab that file. I'm gonna go back a save where it was still poly painted and make the splash page for this. His hair is so fun. trying to think what's gonna be the best angle here. I think this model looks the best in its entirety. There we go, that looks nice. Do a screenshot of that and a quick edit, and that'll be good to go. Awesome, that looks great. And then kind of while we've wrapped up and we're hanging out here, let's do one last fun render in the center. There we are. So if you're just joining the stream, there's a link right now in the chat that I just put in there where you can download this model, the 3D printable files for free. If you missed the stream, this is still gonna be available, it's just not for free. Instead, you can visit my Patreon, it's a pretty smoking deal. So yeah, this is a really good stream. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I always have a really good time. And this one happened pretty smooth and pretty quick. It was just a couple hours for this one. I always appreciate you guys hanging out, I really do. It's just such a chill, relaxing time. And it's fun to look over every now and then, see some comments, have some interesting conversations. Just a good time. I'm gonna leave this up for about another 5 minutes or so, and then I'm gonna call it a wrap. But I think we're good. If you want to decide what I live stream next, you can do that. Every model that I sculpt is a request from Patreon. So yeah. If you have any interest in that, you know where to go. I got that link pinned at the top. Thank you, Pet. I really appreciate it. I think it's a great model too. I'm very proud of it. Tomorrow we're going to be sculpting a frog folk, so that'll be a good time. It's going to be specifically based on like a tree frog. It's going to be in leather armor with a pair of scimitars, so that'll be a neat one. Haven't sculpted a frog in a hot minute. Alright guys. That pretty wraps it up. Oh, someone new just joined though. I do, thank you so much. I'm gonna call you Schmidt because your last name feels more confident in saying it. Thank you so much. I'm actually just wrapping up the stream, but I do live stream pretty much every day, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time. This is a 3D printable model specifically is what I designed it for. I'm not sure if you have a 3D printer, Schmidt, but if you do, I share those files for free just for this live stream. All right. Anyone else that's lurking, I encourage you guys to subscribe so it's easier to find me again and then we can keep hanging out. All right, you guys take care. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.